Yeah. 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 Okay.
Welcome to Afrospace with me, Adetunji Omotola, and my co-host, Nyasha Grace. Afro-Host is a platform where we discuss issues about politics, economy in Africa, and other very important issues. And today, we're joined we're on our show by Mr. Orakwe. Mr. Arinze Orakwe is the Director of Public Enlightenment at the National Agency for Trafficking, to stop the trafficking in persons. Mr. Orakwe, welcome to Afrospace.
Thank you so much, Afrospace. Good afternoon.
Right. Now, Mr. Orakwe, before we begin, I just wanted to read this to you and our viewers. There's an article that was published in June 12, 2018, and it says Nigeria thwarts World Cup child trafficking bot at the airport. Now, the article goes on to say 10 Nigerian children were rescued from human traffickers planning to fly them to Russia and exploit relaxed visa controls for the World Cup. And they quote NAPTIP as having said that. It then goes on to say that 5 suspects, including a policeman and a quarantine officer, were arrested at the Murtala Mohammed Airport for allegedly recruiting the victims, 9 girls and a boy, and facilitating their travel. It then goes on to say the children, who were all in possession of a FIFA fan pass, were intercepted by officials as they tried to board a flight to Moscow, according to your agency NAPTIP. The article then, children were stopped from boarding when staff noticed they only had one-way tickets. It then said your agency NAPTIP said that they had intel showing plans were underway to traffic local women to Russia for the World Cup. And then it goes on to quote Madam Julie Donnelly. As she said, the agency will not give traffickers any opportunity to use the World Cup to ferry Nigerians out into a life of misery abroad. And the article goes on to say that many women and girls have been lured from Nigeria in recent years with promises of work and good wages, only to end up sold for sex and trapped in debt bondage. And the World Cup could, in fact, for the World Cup, there were a number of victims that they felt that could be used, it could be trafficked into Russia, according to a lady called Julia Siluyanova of the Russian anti-slavery group called Alternativa. And it goes on to say that thousands of Nigerian women and girls are trafficked to Europe each year, who take boats from Libya to Italy before being trapped in sex work. So I wanted to give our viewers and yourself that background. So I'll hand on over to Nyasha, who will ask the first question. Nyasha?
All right, yes. Mr. Orakwe, perhaps let's discuss some of the work that NAFSHIP has been involved in. We know that the organization has been in existence for over 20 years, having been established in 2003, and all, of course, it was set up to tackle the human trafficking and other related matters. And we know that the Director General, Madam Julie Donnelly, has been Director General for the past 3 years, 3 months to be exact. And could you give us an understanding of some of the work in the past 3 years that NAPTIP has been able to achieve in terms of prohibiting human trafficking persons in Nigeria?
Okay, thank you so much. One is that, our society was such that we were living in denial as to the the scourge of trafficking in persons, and there was a thin line between the perception of human trafficking as an attempt by an individual to pursue achievement or of the golden fleece in the Western world, and the abuse of rights of person, which it is. So when NAPTIP came on board in 2003, the first thing was an appreciation of the law, expanding the contact base of our publics, making Nigerians know that it is not business as usual. There is crime involved in illegal or irregular migration, and it was quite hard. So, and in one fell swoop, the TPA Act, then as it was called, went about because we knew that the internal trafficking predisposes people to external trafficking, which is what happens in Western Europe. But so we needed to start mounting effective roadblocks within within the country. Those roadblocks include getting the states, majority of the states, especially the pivot states, the states that are the epicenter of this particular crime in the south part of the country. To domesticate the law, set up similar structures like the federal government have done, and set up networks and local networks in those areas, strengthen the capacity of NGOs to help us in the work that we've done. So those were the things we did, and now we started expanding those structures, because and one other thing we did then was to get ECOWAS. ECOWAS supported us largely, because we wanted to see how we can not just Nigeria then was the only country in West Africa, and actually in the Central Africa, the Central African states, to enact laws. So we wanted them to, within this region, the Doha region, to enact similar laws, set up similar structures, and set up similar anti-trafficking structures in both states, so that you do not leave Nigeria and assume that you're safe wherever. And fortunately, NAPTIP has succeeded. There's Ghana has similar laws. Gambia has. Republic of Benin has. So, and right now, we are trying to do same in Mali, because these are the threshold. These are the places that the Nigerian victims are taken, and they're being in preparation to move them to Europe. And also, we've trained the same people in Cameroon. So because we found out there's a lot of labor migration to work in farms and as farmhands in Cameroon and in Gabon. So that being done, as I speak right now, I can tell you that majority of the states in Nigeria, has also domesticated these laws, essentially Edo State and Delta State, and there are anti-trafficking networks in those states. So after that, our first law criminalized anybody having any girl or boy working with you as a house help or whatever kind of help. But when we found out that it was in conflict with our labor laws, we said, okay, fine, because it initially was a blanket ban. If you done that, then you'll be in conflict with the law. So there's at least at a certain age, a child can do some level of work, but not to the extent that that child will be abused or molested or being denied the Child Rights Act, what the enunciations of the Child Rights Act. So I can tell you right now that when we came, then there were people do not appreciate what it meant, but the knowledge had grown, and people have now come to accept that no, this is not migration, because as much as you want to define migration by your own perception, the fact is that irregular migration or illegal migration predisposes people to human trafficking, and people can move. It's your right to move, but not your right to exploit anybody or expose anybody for any kind of exploitation, least of all sexual exploitation or labor exploitation. So as I speak now, we have a NAPTIP secured conviction of 437 persons since the inception who are put in jail, who have served merited sentence, and some are still serving. for their crimes against Nigerian children. And in
Mr.
2014,
just to follow up from that, that's a very good analysis of what you've done, and it seems quite extensive. And the fact that you're also trying to work across the regions that are surrounding not only in ECOWAS but Central Africa. Now, I see here that in 2019, Madam Donnelly talked about NAPTIP having convicted 403 traffickers, rescued 14,000 victims. Now, what are those convictions? Can you share with our viewers what those convictions are? Just in a brief response, and how those victims have been assisted. Just in brief, sir.
Yeah, you see, the thing is that the convictions they are coming. Remember that this is the victims are individuals, and also note that the criminals are not total strangers who drop from Mars. These are relatives of the victims. So initially it was a problem getting conviction, because at the point either the victim says the family pressures and whatever is it comes on the victim, and the victim is not willing or to continue, because it's the victim that can only narrate or tell the court what had happened to her. So the cases are bound. The very first one we got was a case of Hassana, who was trafficked to Saudi Arabia, and by somebody who claimed there was going to be the husband. And when we brought her back, that was in Kano, not even in Edo State, which is the epicenter of trafficking. And we got conviction, and the criminal has served the sentence and had come out. So there are so many cases. Actually, the thing is that, and we do work with our European authorities, sister law enforcement agencies, and it doesn't come easy, because it comes with the strength and skill of our legal officers, who go, first of all, what happened to the victim, convince the victim that, please, this is a crime and it shouldn't have happened to you. What if you migrate, nobody should exploit you by any means, either by level of sexual exploitation. So that's what normally happens. The other case we got was a case of that was in Edo, of a woman who took out some Nigerian girls, about 6 of them, and just at the very first stop in Musa Park in Republic of Benin. That's in the Republic of Benin, and subjected them to expose them to exploitation by prostitution. And the girls actually, when the girls refused they were going to do that, this woman was herself went to report them to the Nigerian embassy in Republic of Benin. The embassy said, okay, fine, we know there's an agency set up in Nigeria whose responsibility is this and that want to help. We'll send you back to them, and they'll make sure they get the money that you spend. And when they brought her back, the case quickly went to court, and she got a sentence and a judgment for her crime. So there are so many. It all depends on what is done. But to be honest with you, the last year, the Oba of Benin, His Majesty the Obesige, went and did a very major instrumental issue fact which has helped prosecution, and which is the fact that they remove the curse that the so-called voodoo priest laces on these victims and made it of no effect. So victims can now come and say, this is what happened to us, irrespective of family ties. So that is just in a nutshell what has happened. Right. It's not been easy, but we keep getting people and we keep asking them, please come.
Yeah. All right, Mr. Orakwe. The stats for Nigeria currently look at least over 1.3 million Nigerians are trafficked annually, and the stats also point to the fact that at least 90% of those numbers are actually trafficked domestically in Nigeria. And I want to bring a case to your attention, sir, that there are babies that have also been sold in Nigeria. I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but the cases have been reported to be widespread in the past 2 years. And the women who have been victims to this type of trafficking are reported to be abducted and raped by men who go on to have children. And these children are taken by these men and they are sold. What is NAPTIP aware of these happenings? And I want to find out if there's any efforts that your organization has made in terms of trying to assist the victims and of this trafficking, and also to bring an end to these babies being sold.
Yeah, let me first of all tell you that there's no end to what criminals do with vulnerable people. Part of the reasons why the Director General of NAPTIP is shouting at SEFO as telling governors to please, as a matter of urgency, to try and empower young women, young girls, and make sure that education is not only free, functional, but also accessible. Now, I like to assume too that what you're talking about is the baby factory syndrome, where some individuals set up what they call, motherless baby homes or whatever, and go and get young girls and get men to impregnate them, and they sell the babies because they are needing people who want to process the government process of adoption. And so that NAPTIP is aware. NAPTIP has sealed up so many of them. The police, we have actually supported the police. So many have been sealed up in those areas where they exist. Many of them have been sealed up in Imo State, to be precise, and on those states, so those are the countless receptacles that have been set up. But they've also helped in training the medical, some of the officers in Ministry of Health, because if homes are not set up, homes are set up licensed by certain government agencies to exist. They just don't exist on their own. So people who license them must, as a matter of urgency, begin to inspect them, check their records, and see what are they doing. What they are doing, is it in consonant with the laws for the rules and regulations guiding such existence or such a receptacle, such facility. So on that score, that is what NAPTIP is done. We are mindful of them. We know that some of these things are there. The zonal officers have been trained, and they know that please go after them. And we also have asked, we are working with the churches, the faith-based organization, to make women understand that it doesn't, that the fact that you cannot bear a child is not a death sentence. You can actually go through the legal process of adopting a baby, rather than exposing yourself to criminals who actually go and exploit somebody else and come and sell a baby. The human beings are not chattels. So it's not something that you go immediately today and you conclude the transaction. So no, that is a capital who's working with them. The Ministry of Health, NAPTIP is working with them to make sure that we have a composite material which makes such specification and tells requisite agencies whose responsibility is to oversight some of these offices or some of these facilities, to make sure that inspectorate and monitoring facilities are done as and when due, and we will not have all this rubbish rearing up its ugly head.
Okay, Mr. Orakwe, thank you for that very wonderful expose you've just given us in relation to Nyasha's question. There's a report, I'm sure you are aware of that report. The State Department of the United States came up with a report in 2017 related to trafficking. And in that report, it says that the Nigerian government does not meet the minimum standards for elimination of trafficking. However, the report goes on to say that there's significant efforts that are being made by NAPTIP to be able to deal with these issues of trafficking. Can you just tell us briefly, so one or two of those significant efforts? Because I think after this, Nyasha will have a question, and then we'll close this interview. So what significant efforts is NAPTIP making in light of this report that says that the government is not doing enough to eliminate trafficking?
Yes, let me start with the positive one, which is the significant efforts made by NAPTIP. Now, we're expanding the frontiers of discussion and conversation around human trafficking. Nobody in Nigeria will say that unless you deliberately want to live in denial, that he doesn't know what trafficking is. What have we done? We have done so much. We have incorporated trafficking into the curriculum for primary and post-primary secondary schools in Nigeria. And we have gone further to actually include it in the teacher education curriculum. So teachers have been, right now, it's in their curriculum. So any child in primary and in secondary schools in Nigeria will be studying human trafficking issues, victim protections, irregular migration, rights of victims, all this. Why? We did it because we consider it urgent. We did it because we want children to understand what trafficking is, the human security implications of human trafficking, you know. So aside from that, what else have we done? We have also gone ahead to make sure that the state working groups are populated by, in the different states, there are 30 states in Nigeria, populated by the police department, the immigration department, the civil society organizations, then the Ministry of Education, State Ministry of Information, to work on designing what works, what is practicable, what is accessible in their state to assist NAPTIP in combating these trafficking issues, and to also become a fulcrum of information to NAPTIP so that arrest and prosecution can be done immediately, such an individual, and basically to increase and sustain awareness creation, and then education of the publics in what this has come to be. Trafficking is a serious crime in Nigeria, and then those who think that they are helping you, you know, no clear stranger will come into your house and come and tell you, I want to help your daughter, because that's their normal lingo, is I want to help you. That help has to be put in place, put where it belongs, which is crime, which is abuse, and which is exploitation, because that's where it normally ends.
All right.
Aside from that,
if you can maybe just finally just talk about the funding issue of NAPTIP. The same State Department report alluded to the fact that there is decreased funding for NAPTIP, and which actually then caused a downgrade for NAPTIP into Tier 2. Just tell us about funding. Why is there a decrease in funding for such important work?
Funding is not just affecting NAPTIP. You know, right now, because of the fall in oil prices, is affecting government capacity to, carry out some of its major responsibilities. But however be that as it may, we're trudging on. We're not dismayed by that. Yes, it could be better. It should actually be better. What makes NAPTIP's case a bit very important is that NAPTIP is the only law enforcement agency in Nigeria that does not just combat crime, but also rehabilitate victims of crime. No other law enforcement agency does that. And we have so many victims who came back, who we need to get into their hand back on their plow and begin to do meaningful things, so that they are not re-trafficked. So we wish it could be better. The State Department mentioned that, and part of the reason why, but you know, what the State Department did was to assess Nigeria. NAPTIP was not assessed because some of the things that were mentioned in their report, or especially that of this day, were things that are beyond NAPTIP control. It had to do with the whole of society and whole of government, and those are the things that compact and actually conflict with makes our inability, our inadequacy to combat this a little bit problematic.
All right, so Mr. Orakwe, unfortunately, we have run out of time, and we have to end off our conversation here. But we want to thank you on behalf of Afrospace for coming and enlightening us about trafficking in persons and in Nigeria, the state of the trafficking in persons, and of course the great work that the National Agency for Prohibiting Trafficking in Persons is currently doing. Tunji?
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Orakwe, for your giving us this lovely information that you have been able to share with our viewers. I know that human trafficking is a very tough challenge in Nigeria and around Africa and the rest of the world. So from myself, Adetunji Motola, I'll say Odabo, Kachifo, Segobe.